And now it's the after lunch session, which is usually the heaviest one. So I'm going to check who falls asleep listening to me. And I have got some people out there to prod you if you start to close your eyes. Yeah. Now, I've been given this session because you just had a langar. You just eaten something. And I'm going to tell you, that's right, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about healthy eating, healthy preparing, cooking, and combinations of what you put on your plate. So you got to focus when you listen to me. Every meal you have, you got to focus on the plate you've got in front of you. As Dilraj was saying, take a picture, and you will start to learn what goes on your plate, what's healthy for you and not so healthy for you, because the symptoms you'll be experiencing the symptoms afterwards. And I think I come from a generation where my parents grew up in quite, if you call poverty, subsistence farming in India. And then obviously they went to Africa and then they came here. And I grew up in the times of being scarcity of food to a certain extent to being abundance. So we all growing up, we can have whatever we like nowadays, whenever we want. It doesn't matter about the seasons, it doesn't matter about anything. So, and we have probably forgotten the fantastic studies that was done over the last 15,000 years by Ayurvedic. And a lot of the old saying used to come from that, don't have fish with milk, and one roti and dal is enough for you, and all sorts of saying, don't do this and don't do that. And we've just started to ignore it, to think this is all fad, it doesn't matter anymore. And all the science that I've looked at more recently as well, and it's starting to tell us that all those old sayings are starting to become true. They're relevant today as they were then. It's just that we have lived in this community. We all come to UK or Africa or wherever we come from, but we lost that touch with India of those times, and we haven't carried those old cultures and all the baggage that used to be with us today. So we've grown up thinking whatever we've been doing since childhood days, our parents taught us what we're going to eat. And in the younger generation, you're telling your kids what you're going to eat. And can you hear me? All right. Yeah, come and sit here. Come and sit here. So yeah, there's some seats in the front. So we have, we have taught our children what to eat, and we only taught them what we thought was normal. Yeah, and my parents taught me what they thought was normal, and there has been some changes over the years. I'll give you an example. Paneer. When I was a child, it never existed. I never heard of paneer. It started to happen. I heard of cheese maybe every now and then, but it was quite late. In fact, I think I was in UK when I first started to experience cheese, paneer, and those sort of things. So we have developed, we feel, onto our eating habits today. And I'm going to share with you some of these Ayurvedic stuff that I've picked up. And I've tried it on myself many times, and I find them really useful. I don't get the problems I used to get. So just to share a story with you, why I came into this was that I was a corporate worker as well, and on a well-being test, they picked up I've got high cholesterol. It was 6 point something, so it's on the borderline of putting you on some tablets or not. And so they said, well, you haven't got any other symptoms. I'm not obese, or I haven't got high blood pressure. So I said, we don't think you're at risk, but you have high cholesterol. So go and see your GP. So I did, and I happened to have a locum GP on the day, sitting down. He was an elderly guy, and he says, "Oh, come and sit down, Sardarji." He said, yes, I've done your lipids and I've done all the tests. Yes, you have got cholesterol of 6.4 or something. Then he said, Saraji, how old are you? So I told him. He said, what do you eat every day? So I went through morning, lunch and evening. You know, get a breakfast, have a toast or something, run to work, lunch, grab whatever sandwich, whatever you can get. Come home, my main meal, I'll have 4-5 rotiyan and, you know, fill it up with all this, you know, then make a feast. Or anything else I can have, you know. Huh? And he says, well, do you think your body needs all that? And I said, well, I don't know, I've done that all my life. He said, yeah. He said, yes. When you were younger, when you were growing up, you needed all that food, you know, as you grow up, you burn lots of calories, obviously. He says, after about 30, 35, you don't need all that food, so your body has to grapple with it and see, what am I going to do with it? I've got to store it somewhere for the rainy day maybe, or, you know, famine or whatever. So your body starts to pile up these fats, usually around your waist, I think. Yeah. And so that's how I came into learning. And then he told me, he said, look, just don't do anything for a moment. For the next 3 months, eat what you're eating, cut it down by half. So I wasn't sure how to eat half a toast in the morning, but I kept that one. But my evening meal, I cut it down to 1 or 2 rotiyan and smaller portions. And you know, my cholesterol started to come down. And so I'm just giving you some story of that. So then I started to look into it a bit further. And that started to teach me some of the things that I was doing wrong in the food mixes. And I've been serving this particular premises for the last 25 odd years since it opened. And we are heavily involved in cooking langars here and all that. So for the last 5 odd years, I've been saying our langars are wrong. You know, they are too heavy. That mixture isn't right and all this sort of thing. But everybody who sponsors the langar, obviously they have their own choices. So they want to make, usually it's a happy occasion, so they make as much as they can, you know, to feed you, all this, you know. And I used to go home eating all that food and thinking, oh, I'm going to fall asleep in the afternoon, then I'll sleep all night as well, and, you know, just to try and digest everything I've taken. And that's really got me onto thinking. So the Ayurvedic treatment, I'll have to open my phone up now because I've written this all down. Quite a few papers I've written down. Okay, so I'll start with that, then we'll come back to some of the food, the types of food you may cook at home, how you prepare them for cooking, and how do you cook them without losing most of the ingredients that your body needs. In fact, you probably won't need the way, if you follow it that way, all your taste buds, to please your taste buds, salt and pepper.
You can use the microphone now.
Sorry. Hello, testing. So I think, so what we'll do is we'll go through that as well. It won't take long, so I don't think I'll overstep my mark. Let me know if I get near there. So the combinations of food to avoid. You may want to write these down in case you don't remember. Now, Ayurveda has listed these because there are different types of proteins in each food. And their thinking is your body usually should, in one meal, should have just 1, maybe 2 types of proteins and not any more than that to digest. So that's what the philosophy goes on there, yeah? It starts off with milk. Now, obviously, milky products, dairy products. There are probably 200 of them if you list them. So milk is a food, a complete food on its own. If you can recall, the babies and all the mammals, they feed their babies just milk, nothing else, and they they're healthy and they come through that. So milk is a food on its own for your body to digest. You don't need, and it doesn't need any help from any other things for your body to digest. So don't have milk with any other food is the message, if you want to take that. And the biggest culprit is probably matar paneer, khatta, kheer, everything that we do. We put cream in the fruit and we have that as a sweet as well. That's all. So milk gets in everywhere. There's so many dairy products which we need to avoid mixing with the normal food that we have, especially pulses, legumes, which are dals and chole and anything that with the skin on the matar, peas, those sort of foods. Should never mix those in the same plate, in the same meal, with any dairy product. So you can imagine in the langars that we have, or vyaha, or wherever we go, how often you see matar paneer or dalans with khattas and kheers and all these sort of things going on. Then I've got tea, coffee, or other soft drinks or fizzy foods, with solid foods. When you're eating solid food, give it a bit of gap before you have a drink. That gives your enzymes to work at the full concentration to break down your foods in your body and absorb the nutrients that your body needs. That way, you get the best out of the foods you're eating without wasting them. If you start having drinks with it, it dilutes digestion process as well as the absorption of nutrients. So you miss out on all those. When you keep missing out on all those, you have the symptoms like you've heard, fatigues and tiredness and all these sort of things, is because you're probably doing things to the food. You should have got everything out of it, but you feel the effects of it afterwards. Having cold water with hot foods is another Ayurvedic. If you have hot food, your body's inside, it's warm and it's starting to break down. Pouring cold water over it actually stops that process. They have to restart and rewarm again in that way. So if you want to have something hot, I've got 2 minutes. Okay, fruits with any other food. We have often cut fruits and have that as a sweet or something. The fruit tends to ferment in the stomach or in your body. That fermentation process impacts everything you're doing in digestion process in your body. So eat fruit on an empty stomach if you want to. That's the best way to eat it. And the other things are freshly cooked food. When you have food in your fridge or something, you reheat it and you eat it that way. That sometimes the combination does not work. So for hot food, keep it hot on those areas. Yeah. So I think I'll share with you those. As I've only got a couple of minutes left, I'll just share some other thoughts with you. All the fresh veg and that you normally cook at home, anything that grows under the ground, the goodness of all the food that you're going to eat is on the outside of that veg. What do? The carrots come out, we wash them, then we peel them, then we do also, we actually take all the goodness out of those foods by doing that. The way to do it is to buy them organic or fresh if you can, scrub them under the water to take all the dirt if it's dirty, and then cook them as they are. Obviously, you can chop them down to make it palatable, but so that way, and you'll see that only prepare and cook them just before you are going to cook them or eat them, and you'll see the taste of it is different, and you won't need any salt and pepper on it either, because it'll already be tasting 10 times better than what it is. And when you're cooking all the veg, once it starts simmering, if you put it on a pan to simmer it, don't let it simmer for more than 3 minutes, any veg. Between 1 and 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, you're starting to kill off all the goodness out of it. So some very basic tips which comes on how to cook all the veg you're having. And the other point I wanted to make was that when you're what's on your plate has the big impact on your environment as well. So me being environmentally conscious, if you eat meat, the larger the animal, the more adverse impact you are contributing to the global environment, if you like. So dairy farming, for instance, and the beef farms have been known to be the biggest contributor, even more than the cars on the road. So the bigger the animal, obviously the smaller the animal, and white meat is probably more healthier. Fish, eggs are healthier than red meat. But so you may need red meat for vitamin B12 and other goodness in there, but you don't need to have it all the time. Yeah. 0 time left. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions somebody may have, either afterwards.
I've got a question. Yeah, so you talked a little bit about how you've benefited having made these changes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any more that you can elaborate? Maybe like you said how your cholesterol's declined since making some of these changes. But anything else that you're noticing, energy levels, or just a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't noticed any lack of energy levels, I don't think. I'm probably doing more now than when I used to work, actually. And I want to go back to work to get some rest, actually, at the moment. So all this charity work is really tiring. It's 7 days a week, 24/7. But joking apart, I haven't noticed anything that I felt that I'm lacking energy in anything. Only thing I lack is I think I need to do more exercise personally. Yeah, that's my goal. Is that I'm going to start dancing now. I'm going to put the YouTube on and dance about on my front room somewhere on my own. So I need to do more exercise. But actually, physically, I've lost the belly I had more or less, and my weight is stable. I don't think I'm missing anything. When I'm eating or doing, I don't miss much. Just to show one other thing, all the mixture of foods you have and the carbohydrates on your plate, if you have flour and or rice or things like that, just have one type. Don't have potatoes and rice and flour in one meal, for instance, just to help your body break down the goodness and absorb the goodness. And the alcohol in your body with the flour, yeast, and the beers that we drink, I'm afraid it's bad news. More recent study has shown your cell regeneration. Okay, your bodies have loads of filters which filter all the goodness, takes it out of your gut brain, as we called it earlier, and it feeds your brain and the rest of the body, all the goodness that's coming out of it. And the filters that allow certain things to go into the different organs, including your brain, that filter, their cell regeneration is impacted adversely by alcohol and the yeast type of products. Yeah. So, and they get thinner and the gaps get wider. And when the wrong foods end up in the wrong places, you start to experience many of the diseases that go around affecting our families. Very simple message. I'm sorry I'm taking longer than I said. But I think that message has to get through to everyone to change your diets today, especially younger people, You have to remember this, and your kids. Change it now before they get into bad habits like I've been most of my life.
I have a question. I have a question, maybe a wider question. Talking about fruits and vegetables. From my experience as a youngster in Nairobi, if you passed by a fruit shop, you could smell apples, you could smell all sorts of decent fruits there. That's point number one. This is food, you have those apples, actually you can't smell it and tell what it is. Secondly, chemicals that are used to to preserve these,
Mhm.
prolong its life to bring to us,
Yeah.
that has quite an adverse effect on what we eat. For example, an apple will never rot in your house that you bought from Sainsbury's, no matter what you buy. Organic, not organic, right? So I think we have to kind of think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we haven't got enough time. I think we're going to have another session on food, especially langars and the food preparation. And I have got many researches on every fruit, and what residues are left on that fruit when you take it home. And you won't believe the common fruits, how many impurities and chemicals are on that fruit when you eat it. I think banana might be safe.
Lots of allergy issues are happening because it's genetically modified. So
Yeah.
Cancer example, you know, there's a lot
Yeah.
of kind of linking to that.
lots of health problems happening now from our food supply.
Yeah. Anyway, I have outlived my time, so any questions I'm happy to answer after. As you know, I'm here anyway, so I know most of you. You can always see me if you want to have a chat with me. Thank you very much.